Hey guys, tonight we set sail under an ink-black sky with stars as our compass and the gentle hiss of water slapping against a carved wooden hull. You're standing barefoot on a double-hulled canoe built entirely by hand and just sturdy enough to make you question your recent life choices. The ocean is vast, unbroken, and slightly smug. The wind teases your hair. A flying fish skips by, probably judging your paddling form. Welcome to the Pacific. It's midnight. You're centuries from modern tech. And your only guide, a ripple. A star. Maybe a coconut or two. You probably won't survive this, but don't worry. This is bedtime, not a survival course. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You grip the edge of the canoe with fingers sticky from dried banana mash and look out into the endless ocean. The moon is slicing across the sky like it's got an appointment somewhere better. Your navigator, let's call him Kahele, barefoot, wiry eyes, like obsidian, is quietly chanting to the stars. He's not lost. You, however, feel deeply committed to the art of confusion. Kahele doesn't use a compass. He doesn't need one. Instead, he stares into the sky with the sort of calm intensity you reserve for trying to remember your email password. He mumbles names of stars in a melody older than any written alphabet. You try to mimic the chant. You fail. The stars do not respond. They know you're new. Polynesians, long before European maps and maritime arrogance, had this whole system for navigating called wayfinding. It was practical poetic and involved knowing the sea like it was your weird but lovable cousin. They didn't need metal tools or charts. They read the sea itself, its ripples, colors, and moods. Yes, the sea has moods. Today it's in mildly threatening mode. You're floating somewhere between what is now known as Tahiti and, well, somewhere else. The canoe creaks like it's offering commentary. Water glows around you with bioluminescent sparkles, tiny sea fairies dancing under your vessel. It's beautiful. It's eerie. It's a reminder you're very small in a very big place. The Pacific Ocean is comically large. It covers more than 63 million square miles and makes other oceans feel like inflatable kiddie pools. And yet Polynesians were crisscrossing it centuries ago, planting human feet on specks of land that most people today couldn't find with Google Earth. Historians still argue whether they used only celestial cues or if birds' drift patterns and magic coconuts were also involved. Some insist on practical explanations. Others point to oral traditions so elaborate they feel mythical. And then there's you sitting in your canoe chewing on dried taro, wondering if the moon has opinions. A warm breeze pushes your hair back. The scent of salt and fermented fruit lingers in the air. You breathe in deeply and try to let go of the anxiety of not knowing where you're going. You're here for the journey. The slow rocking of the canoe makes your eyelids heavy, and Kahele's soft chant works like a lullaby tuned to the rhythm of wave against wood. He taps the side of the canoe with a hollow thump 3 beats. A signal. You watch as another sailor dips a hand into the water and mutters something about the current. There's a quiet consensus. They change direction. You ask why. The answer. The sea said so. You lie back and let the stars wheel overhead, spinning like silent dancers on a celestial ballroom floor. Each constellation has a name, a story, a direction. The sky is not just decoration, it's a map that sings. In the distance you hear someone playing a nose flute. It's not good, but it's honest. Nearby, someone whispers about the tilapa, a mysterious streak of underwater light that sometimes points toward land. Scientists are still trying to figure it out. The Polynesians just accepted it, trusted it, followed it. Fringe tidbit, or sea-born miracle. That's your pillow thought for the night. And even as you drift further from the known, a strange sense of calm sets in. The ocean is large, yes, but it's not empty. Not when you can read it like a book. Not when every wave, every shimmer, every cloud shadow has something to say. You close your eyes, lulled by water sky and the hush of paddles. Tonight you're just a speck in history's canoe. Floating. Listening. Dreaming. The canoe glides on, slicing through moonlit ripples with the grace of something far older than you. You sit cross-legged now, knees aching slightly from unfamiliar use, and watch Kahele dip his fingers into the ocean once again. He doesn't just touch the water. He listens with his hands, as though the sea is whispering secrets that only his skin can decode. This isn't a metaphor. Polynesian navigators, the wayfinders, learned to read wave patterns called refraction swells, subtle, sometimes invisible to the untrained eye. These ripples bounce off islands miles away, creating gentle rhythms layered beneath the more obvious waves. It's like feeling the bass beat in a song before the melody even begins. You try to feel them. You get wet. Kahele smirks. Around you, the other sailors move with a quiet coordination that borders on eerie. One adjusts the sail made of woven pandanus leaves. Another shifts the balance of cargo bundles of taro gourds of water, even a sleepy chicken tied to a pole. Everything has a place, including the chicken. They work not with barking orders or measured commands, but with gestures, shared glances, and the low hum of chants. There's no arguing over Google Maps here. If a course needs adjusting, they discuss it in song. Literally. Some of these navigation chants, called kaulua, encode directions, distances, and seasonal knowledge, all in poetic verse. Imagine getting turn-by-turn directions via lullaby. And the best part, these chants weren't written down. They were passed mouth to mouth, generation to generation. Historians still argue whether some of them were intentionally vague to keep sacred knowledge within select families. Navigational gatekeeping long before paywalls. The stars shift slightly overhead, and Kahele points to a formation you now recognize: the Southern Cross. It glimmers low in the sky, tilting like a sleepy compass needle. Beneath it, the sea pulses gently, catching silver reflections in its folds. And then Kahele speaks a single word: Hokulea. It's not just a star, it's a dream. Hokulea is the name of both a guiding star and, centuries later, a canoe built in Hawaii in the 1970s that reignited traditional Polynesian wayfinding. It proved to the modern world what Kahele and his ancestors always knew: they didn't drift. They voyaged. On purpose, with style. You're hungry, but it feels impolite to admit it. Someone hands you a lump of poi wrapped in banana leaf. It tastes like paste and purpose. You nod your thanks and chew in rhythm with the waves. Life on the canoe is stripped down, no spoons, no chairs, no scrolling. Just food, sea, and a growing understanding that water has memory. Kahele is telling a story now. You don't understand all the words, but you catch the shape of it: a chief who lost his bearings and found an island by watching seabirds. A voyage that was saved by a flying fish. A storm that split a canoe in two, and the two halves both made it home. It's part history, part myth, all heart. He pauses mid-story, nose twitching. You follow his gaze and see them birds swooping low. They don't flap like normal seabirds. These are noyo noddies, often seen near land. Their flight paths tell more than feathers. If they're returning to roost, land is close. If they're hunting, it's farther off. And if they poop on you, consider it a blessing. Allegedly. You ask how far the next island is. Kahele shrugs, then points with his chin toward the horizon. Soon, he says, which could mean hours, or tomorrow, or 2 chicken naps from now. Someone beside you adjusts the lashings on a mast and starts singing again. It's a low song, almost a hum, but it stitches everyone together. You hum along off-key, but accepted. For now, you're part of the crew. A quirky tidbit some voyagers use to carry bundles of leaves, or even tar-drenched feathers. When tossed into the sea, these would float in specific patterns, revealing currents and speed. Sea breadcrumbs, ocean GPS with 0 battery required. You feel the swell of waves from your right, long, low rhythmic. Kahele tilts his head, then gives a slow nod. There's an island out there, he says. It's not visible, but it's speaking in waves. Historians still debate how accurate these methods were. Some say Polynesians had uncanny accuracy, while skeptics point to survivorship bias, the idea that we only hear the successful stories because, well, the others didn't return. But you're not interested in the debate right now. You're watching Kahele steer a canoe across the largest ocean in the world, using nothing but water stars and nerve. The night grows cooler. A splash startles you, just a dolphin curious as ever. It arcs beside the canoe, watching with one shiny eye. You consider offering it some poi. You decide against it. You lean back, arms behind your head, and watch the stars rearrange themselves. The sky is a slow kaleidoscope, each twist of constellations whispering a direction. You can't read it yet, but Kahele can. And as long as he's at the helm, you can breathe a little easier. Far ahead, there's the faintest smudge of shadow against the horizon. An island, a trick of the light, Kahele smiles. Soon, he says again. You nod. For now, that's enough. Morning arrives like a slow exhale, gentle light stretching across the sky and washing away the velvet of night. You blink awake to the creaking of wood and the rhythmic slap of water against the hull. It takes you a moment to remember where you are not in your bed, not anywhere with cell service, but afloat on the Pacific Ocean in a canoe older than maps. The world is now painted in shades of blue and gold. Sea and sky meet in a perfect seam that only the most confident bird would dare to cross. You squint and spot a tiny dot on the horizon. Maybe an island. Maybe another hallucination. Kahele doesn't even glance at it. He's looking somewhere else, lower at the waves themselves. See that, he says, and you nod instinctively before realizing you don't. He points to the ripples moving in a slightly different direction than the rest, like they're late to a very large watery meeting. Island swell, he says. Reflected waves. It sounds like magic. But it's just physics wearing a grass skirt. When waves hit land, any land they bounce back, even if you're too far to see it. Polynesian navigators knew how to read these reflected swells like a message in a bottle. Some even claim to have sensed them while lying on their backs with eyes closed, letting the canoe speak through their bones. Historians still debate whether this is true or just really good PR. Either way, you try lying down. You feel something. Mostly confusion and a sudden craving for pineapple. As the sun climbs higher, so does the heat. The crew is unfazed. They work shirtless, their skin already lacquered by wind and salt. One of them starts a chant, this one faster, more like a paddling rhythm. It's catchy. You hum along, once again off-key, but now fully committed. A fun fringe fact. Some navigators trained by sailing blindfolded. Others memorized star charts carved into wood or shaped in coral arrangements on sand. These were not seafarers by accident. They were astronauts of the sea, charting invisible galaxies using splashes and starlight. Kahele offers you a cracked coconut. You accept it like it's a fragile goblet, half expecting it to speak ancient wisdom. Instead, it offers coconut water, which is arguably better. As you sip, you think about how every part of the journey is steeped in utility. Even the canoe itself is a kind of storybook, every lashing, every curve, every material chosen with purpose. Breadfruit, tree wood, senet ropes, made from coconut husk sails woven tighter than your last tax deadline. You try to help by adjusting a line. The knot you tie immediately embarrasses itself. Kahele reties it without a word. You consider apologizing, but settle for handing him a piece of dried banana instead. Peace offering accepted. Overhead seabirds circle. These aren't your average tourists. They're signal flares in feathered form. Boobies, frigates, and terns all follow patterns feeding ranges nesting roots. If you know the bird, you know the direction. One navigator could identify 21 species by flight alone. You're still struggling to tell apart tuna and seaweed. The crew suddenly stiffens eyes on the water. A shadow glides beneath the canoe. It's massive, sleek, a whale. You freeze, then exhale. Its surfaces sprays mist and continues on its ancient commute. Kahele bows his head slightly. Good sign, he murmurs. You try to feel reverent, but mostly you feel damp and awed and slightly underqualified to share ocean space with giants. A sudden gust shifts the sail. The canoe veers and Kahele adjusts course with a flick of the paddle. It's not dramatic, it's practiced, like breathing. And this is where the real brilliance lies, in the constant micro-adjustments, the dozens of data points gathered not from a screen, but from muscle memory rhythm and gut. Some historians believe these wayfinders used a mental construct called the star compass, not a physical item, but a model in the navigator's mind. It divided the horizon into segments, aligning each direction with a known star. As the stars rose and set, they guided the canoe like celestial breadcrumbs. You try to build your own compass in your head. North is that way. South, somewhere behind you. The rest is filled with vague gestures and hope. You pause to observe the crew. One man is carving something, an amulet, a fishhook. It's shaped like a spiral, the kind that shows up in ocean waves and snail shells, and inexplicably in your last corporate logo. Kahele notices your interest. Mana, he says, spiritual power. It's not superstition. It's belief woven into daily function. The ocean isn't just a backdrop. It's alive. It remembers. It punishes and rewards in equal measure. You feel a little like a guest who accidentally showed up to a sacred family dinner wearing Crocs. The sun begins to mellow, and shadows stretch long across the canoe. You check your tiny smudge on the horizon. It's bigger now. Definitely land. Kahele says nothing, but he hums a tune that feels like anticipation. The chicken clucks once. Even it seems to know. The air thickens with that strange electricity you only feel when land is near, though here electricity means something more primal than wires and sockets. It's the change in scent first. Less salt, more green. A whiff of distant flowers, damp soil, maybe even banana leaves carried lazily on the breeze like nature's RSVP. Kahele stands his eyes fixed on the swelling outline of the island. The rest of the crew has gone quiet. No more chants. Just the whisper of the sail, the creak of the canoe's bones, and the rhythmic slap of waves that now seem to hold their breath. You rise too wobbling and grasp the outrigger for balance. The island, if you can still call it that, seems impossibly lush. You'd half expected some flat slab of sand and seagulls. But this is an emerald fortress rising from the ocean, ringed in coral and haloed with mist. You see how the clouds gather above it. Kahele says barely more than a whisper. Islands pull clouds. They feed on the sun and drink the sea. You nod like you knew that. You did not. You also didn't know the clouds could double as signposts, low cumulus, often hovering stubbornly above islands, even before land is visible. Polynesians spotted those first long before GPS and steered towards them like breadcrumbs in the sky. Historians still argue whether these navigators mapped such signs formally or just passed the knowledge orally. The likely answer, both. Knowledge was encoded in song, in chant, in rhythm. A lullaby might secretly chart the coordinates to a sacred atoll. Your Spotify playlist could never. A bird lands briefly on the outrigger, stares at you with judgmental eyes, then flies off in the direction of the island. Even the wildlife's getting impatient. As the canoe slices closer, the mood shifts again. One crew member dips a woven basket into the ocean. You assume it's for fishing, but he pulls it back out full of seaweed, sniffs it, and gives Kahele a nod. Fresh currents, Kahele says. Close now. You try sniffing the water too. You mostly get sunburnt knees and a suspicious gurgle from your stomach. Clearly you have not yet ascended to sea sage. Suddenly a series of sharp knocks ring out wooden sticks, tapping rhythmically on the side of the canoe. It's a signal repeated from another canoe ahead, and then echoed by one behind. The whole flotilla now communicates through percussion. It's Morse code meets water ballet. Turns out when your ancestors don't invent texting, they improvise with a kind of wave-borne walkie-talkie. The taps confirm direction wave height and proximity. You try tapping out your own message. Kahele gently takes the sticks from your hand. Let's just listen today. The sun dips lower, painting the sky in lazy streaks of peach and coral. The island is close enough now to show detail, palm fronds swaying a small beach, half sunken in the tide, a few black volcanic rocks that rise like sleeping beasts. There's motion near the shoreline people. They're waving large leaves signaling the canoes in. You wonder if this happens every time, or if today is special. Judging by the crew's now meticulous movements, straightening ropes, adjusting cloaks, one man quickly braiding his hair, you're guessing special. You help gather gear. A fishing net, the ever-surviving chicken, a conch shell that's been oddly quiet so far. Kahele hands it to a young boy who blows into it with surprising grace. The sound that emerges is not music so much as history, low echoing something that shakes you inside your ribs. It's the welcome call. Or maybe the warning. Hard to tell. Fun fringe fact. Some Polynesian groups used shell trumpets to announce arrival long before any colonial ships showed up with cannons and confusion. The conch was both a musical instrument and a passport stamp. As you close in, a smaller canoe paddles out to meet you. It carries garlands, bundles of taro, and what appears to be a roasted pig already halfway into a nap. The exchange is wordless, ceremonial. You feel more like an actor than a tourist now, as if the ocean has drafted you into a play written 1,000 years ago. Kahele accepts a garland and places it around your neck. It smells like earth and citrus and something else you can't place. You thank him. He grins. Now you look official. You step off the canoe into ankle-deep water, and your feet meet sand that feels both foreign and weirdly familiar. You've arrived. Not just in place, but in story. This isn't just a journey. It's a reenactment of thousands before it, each guided by sky and sea, each trusting that waves can whisper truth if you learn to listen. Up ahead on the edge of the trees, you spot a small stone platform ringed with torches. People are gathering some singing softly. The wind picks up the melody and hands it to you. You breathe deep. You made it. Not because you're special, but because you allowed the ocean to lead. And somewhere behind you, beyond the visible horizon, the canoe rocks gently ready for its next whisper. By now the salt has settled into your skin like an old friend. Your muscles ache in that oddly satisfying way, the kind that says, yes, you've survived something. And as you follow the winding path inland, shaded by towering breadfruit trees and the occasional squawking bird that seems just a little too judgy, you realize something important. You're still at sea, just a different kind. This island is an ocean of leaves, a tide of branches, a coastline made of roots. Kahele leads you with confidence, barefoot on uneven ground, and never once stumbles. You try to keep pace, your own feet less sure, more tentative, like they know they haven't yet earned the right to stride. The trail opens up into a clearing, and you stop short. Before you lies a carved wooden structure, not unlike a temple, ringed by basalt stones and decorated with tall totems that stare skyward like sentinels. Some of the figures wear weathered seashell necklaces, others tufts of feather and woven bark. This, Kahele says, is where the voyages begin and end. A soft chant drifts from behind the altar. An elder is seated, cross-legged eyes, closed hands, tracing patterns in the dirt. You're told he's one of the Taula Atua, a spiritual navigator. His map isn't drawn with ink, but with memory. He can recite star paths from one end of the Pacific to the other, all without ever lifting a compass. He dreams in directions. The crew sits quietly, forming a semicircle around the elder. You follow suit, lowering yourself onto a mat that smells faintly of pandanus and damp earth. This is no show for tourists. This is memory maintenance. Knowledge passed not on paper, but between heartbeats. And here comes your historical fact. For the night, Polynesian navigation was so precise, so honed, that Captain Cook, yes, the stabbed-in-Hawaii guy, recruited a Tahitian navigator named Tupaya, whose maps and direction sense dazzled even the best European sailors. Historians still argue whether Western exploration would have even been possible without this indigenous guidance. The elder speaks slow and melodic. You don't understand the words, but the rhythm alone starts to untie the knots in your chest. He tells of voyages past islands named and unnamed, of signs in the clouds, the way dolphins sometimes guide you, if you ask nicely, and promise to feed them something besides admiration. You glance around. Some of the crew are mouthing the words along with him, eyes closed. Others, like you, simply watch. Somewhere behind the altar, a small cooking fire crackles. Someone's stirring something that smells suspiciously like hope and fish. The elder pauses and lifts a hand. One of the younger navigators rises and approaches a large stone slab to your left. It's etched with faint grooves, some straight, others curved. You squint. It's a map, or at least it's their version of a map. Etua Kahele whispers beside you. It shows where the currents dance. Turns out some islands carved current patterns into volcanic rock. These weren't just art, they were memory anchors. Each line represented a ripple behavior, a way the water curls, or the wind skips across its skin. Your Google Maps could never. The youth begins to trace the grooves with a stick, naming currents as he goes. Some are like old friends, Te Vaka Rangi Moana Tui. You wonder how many are real and how many are folklore. Then again, in this part of the world, that line's more of a suggestion than a rule. A nearby boy nudges you and points upward. You look and realize the stars are beginning to appear, tiny holes poked through the evening veil. The Southern Cross first, then a scatter of other dots slowly blooming like bioluminescence. Kahele stands, raises a hand, and begins pointing. "That's your true east," he says, gesturing to a rising star. "And that one there, see how it flirts just above the horizon. That's where the path to Rapa Nui begins. You blink. You've heard of Rapa Nui, Easter Island, a speck in the Pacific, a whisper in a storm, and they knew how to find it with nothing but that flirtatious little star. Here's your quirky tidbit for the night. One Polynesian navigation chant reportedly included lyrics about a star that dips like a drunk bird to describe a specific celestial marker. Science, art, why not both? The fire pit crackles louder now. A pot is lifted, bowls are passed. You're handed one filled with steaming fish broth, banana, and taro. It's oddly sweet, subtly spicy, and deeply comforting, like if a warm hug and a good cry made soup together. As you eat, the older navigator continues his recitation. He weaves islands into sentences, directions into lullabies. He's not just teaching, he's preserving. You feel an odd pang. You're a tourist here, yes, but in this moment you're also a vessel. You're carrying a fragment of this story now, even if you never sail again. And that's when it hits you they don't memorize to impress. They memorize to remember. Not just paths across oceans, but paths to who they are. The fire dims, stars multiply. Someone begins to hum, not a chant this time, but a melody that feels like it belongs under a baby's cradle. You lean back, head resting against a woven mat, and close your eyes for just a second. When you open them, Kahele is still standing, still pointing, still tracing invisible highways across the sky. And you think tomorrow you'll ask to learn one. Just one star path. Just one piece of their sea-spun alphabet. Because somehow that feels like enough to start. You wake before dawn, or maybe you never really slept. It's hard to tell when your dreams are full of drifting stars and whispered coordinates. The sky above is a deep, ink-black ocean, and someone's already stirring the coals in the fire pit, coaxing a reluctant flame back to life. It hisses and pops like it's negotiating its contract. Kahele greets you with a nod and a steaming wooden cup of something vaguely coconutty. He doesn't say good morning because here the day doesn't start, it resumes. Everything is continuous, the stars, the waves, the work. You follow the others down to the beach again. The canoe has been uncovered and cleaned. Its hull gleams with fresh oil, and new bundles of taro and dried fish have been packed beneath the benches. Preparations hum like a hive. The energy isn't frantic, it's focused. Purposeful. Your task is simple, and you're quietly grateful for that. You help secure ropes, tie knots that Kahele patiently corrects 3 times, and stow gear in places that somehow already feel sacred. This is the last day on land for a while. Everyone knows it. And yet there's no ceremony, no speeches or dramatic farewells, just a quiet humming that passes from sailor to sailor, a kind of collective inhale before the long, slow exhale of the sea. A woman in a saffron wrap hands out necklaces made of woven tea leaves. For guidance, she says, and it's unclear whether she means the physical kind or the spiritual kind. Maybe both. You accept yours with a nod and tuck it under your shirt like it's a cheat code. And here's your historical fact of the morning tea leaves were, and still are, considered sacred across many Polynesian cultures, believed to offer protection and spiritual clarity, especially during sea voyages. Historians still argue whether the rituals associated with them were purely symbolic or grounded in more practical maritime psychology. As the sun begins to edge up from the horizon, painting the water in soft golds and dusty pinks, the crew begins launching the canoe. You wade into the surf hands, gripping the wooden hull shoulder to shoulder, with strangers who are starting to feel like co-authors in whatever this voyage will become. The canoe shutters slides, and then it floats. You scramble aboard, heart hammering not from fear, but from the sudden certainty that you are now part of something ancient. Something stitched into the DNA of this region. Something that predates maps, GPS, and any idea that the Pacific was empty. It was never empty. It's a highway, a stage, a storybook. You take your place near the back, just ahead of the navigator's seat. Kahele is already perched in his usual spot, legs crossed, face turned toward the rising sun like he's listening for instructions only he can hear. The wind picks up just enough to nudge the sail open. It flaps, catches, and the canoe begins to move smoothly, silently, like it's remembering an old song. You glance back at the island. It's shrinking fast already, losing detail, already becoming memory. A child waves from the shore. You raise your hand and wave back even though you're not sure they can see. Eyes forward, Kahele says gently. The land will always wait. The ocean won't. You nod, feeling the truth of it settle like an anchor in your ribs. And then come the ripples. At first you barely notice them, just faint shimmers in the water like the sea is flexing. But Kahele's already shifted. His head tilts. His finger draws a small figure 8 in the air. The swell is shifting, he mutters almost to himself. Something large passed this way. You squint at the surface. It looks fine. Normal, even. But Kahele leans over and dips his hand into the water eyes, half-closed mouth, moving silently. When he pulls it back, he points left. We adjust course. No compass, no debate. Just faith in the waves, in the boat, in the pattern. And here's your quirky tidbit of the day. Some master navigators could feel the shift of wave interference through their buttocks, yes, seriously, by lying down on the bottom of the canoe and reading the swell through their bones. It wasn't a joke. It was a skill. You stare at the water harder, willing yourself to notice something. Eventually you do. The way two sets of waves intersect, how they form faint ridges that move diagonally. It's subtle, but it's there. The ocean is giving hints, and in that moment it hits you. This isn't primitive navigation. It's precision. It's observation turned into language, into rhythm, into route. This is geometry with sea foam. Kahele begins humming a low note deep in his throat. The others join in one by one, forming a droning harmony that blends with the wind and the creak of wood. It's not for show. It's their metronome. The canoe cuts through the waves like a question mark chasing its answer. You exhale and close your eyes, letting the wind tangle your hair, the sun warm your skin, and the sound of synchronized breathing lull you into a rhythm, not just of travel, but of trust. This is not your world, but you're here. And for now, that's enough. You open your eyes again, just as a shadow passes over the water. Not a cloud, those have been scarce since dawn, but something larger, slower. You glance up to find a booby bird wheeling overhead, its white wings dipped in black, like a page half-written. Kahele grins. They like to follow us, he murmurs. They know we know where the fish are. And there's your historical fact. Polynesian navigators often used the behavior of seabirds to estimate proximity to land. Certain species would only venture so far from their nesting islands. A nod to ornithology centuries before it became an academic field. You watch the bird wheel circle and vanish into a patch of blue. The canoe continues its glide, steady and sure. You still feel the ghost of those wave ripples beneath you, barely there, but present like the bass line in a song you're only just learning to hum. Kahele points to the sky. Look, he says. Manayakalani. The word tastes like coral and mystery. He explains it's a constellation, one of many. A fishhook shape used to signal the direction of home or away from it, depending on how it sits in the sky. Stars as road signs. The idea makes you want to cry a little in the good way. Historians still argue Kahele adds whether our ancestors memorized the entire sky or just trusted the movements like family patterns. I say, what's the difference? That's the other truth here. Knowledge isn't always stored in books. Sometimes it's in songs, in proverbs, in calyces. The day stretches on. The wind dips, then returns like it's shy. The ocean changes tone, deeper, blue, richer green, a hint of something beneath. Someone points and murmurs about a current line. Kahele nods. Good eyes. You watch as thin streaks of foam line up like the ocean is marking lanes. Currents, he explains, can carry your mistakes or correct them. Depends how honest you are. You wonder what the ocean thinks of you. For a while, no one talks. The canoe simply moves the water, slicing away beneath it like pages turning. And then Kahele begins telling stories, not with drama, not for applause, but like someone handing you a warm rock. He tells you about a canoe that followed dolphins for 3 days, about a grandmother who dreamed her island was shaped like a shark and was right, about the time he got lost for 7 hours and found his way back using only a cloud. Not all the stories make sense. One involves a flying pig and a jealous reef, but they all feel true. And here's your quirky tidbit. Some traditional navigators were trained in cloud, whispering a practice where the shape, color, and movement of clouds could hint at the location of landmasses, storms, or even other voyaging canoes. No apps, just vapor. Kahele notices your focus. Want to learn? You nod. He points to a cluster of low, wide clouds just on the horizon. See that you do. They're slightly pinker, heavier looking. That means shallow water. Sand reflects light. Water reflects the sand. Sky reflects the water. Everything talks. You try to nod sagely. It comes out more like a confused head bob. He laughs softly and goes back to scanning. By midday, the heat turns syrupy. One of the crew dips a woven net overboard, pulling up a few silver fish that shimmer like jewelry. Another cracks open a gourd of fresh water and passes it along. Everything is shared. No counting, no claiming. The ocean taught them not to hoard. Kahele tosses one fish back. Too small, he says, and it flicks once, then vanishes with an insulted splash. He starts humming again, something slower, older. You try to join and immediately veer off-key. He doesn't correct you. He just sings louder, folding your mistake into the melody like an uncle pretending not to notice you've tripped. You close your eyes again, not out of fatigue, but because the sun has begun to dazzle everything into a blur. It reflects off the sea in shimmers and winks. The canoe creaks gently. Someone is napping under the sail. Kahele's voice drones on, part lullaby, part compass. Time unravels. You could be 20 miles out. You could be 200. It doesn't matter. You've surrendered to the rhythm, the red, the rumble. The ocean becomes a book. Kahele reads its margins. You try to keep up scanning the water for that pattern again, wave against wave, ripple colliding with ripple. It's there. Not every second, not loudly, but present. Always present. And as the sun leans westward, casting long gold shadows across the boat and bronzing every arm, you realize something. You're not looking for land anymore. You're learning how not to be lost. Night doesn't fall at sea, it folds in slowly, like a curtain drawn by clouds. You first notice it in the hush. The crew's chatter softens. Even the waves seem to tiptoe. Shadows stretch out like tired dogs. The sun, once a blazing overseer, begins to slip into its hammock on the edge of the world, casting peach and saffron across the sky. Kahele lays a hand on your shoulder. This is when we see best, he says quietly. And you believe him. Around you, lanterns are lit not with fire, but with reflections. The stars begin to show themselves modestly at first, then in full sparkle. Constellations wheel into place like actors hitting their marks. The sky becomes a map again, and the canoe leans into it like a horse finding its stride. And here's your mainstream historical fact. Polynesian navigators like Kahele used a method called star path navigation. By knowing which stars rose and set over certain islands and the angles between them, they could track direction and distance even in open ocean. Celestial geometry without calculators. The sea darkens, but the crew moves like they've memorized the shadows. One man adjusts the sail by feel alone. Another coils rope with sleepy precision. Kahele lies back and stares up, lips moving as he counts stars you can't even see yet. You lie down too, the canoe cradling you like an old wooden lullaby. The stars stare back. One of them winks. Probably Venus. Possibly an ancestor with a weird sense of humor. A soft song begins. It's not loud, not performed, just a hum passed mouth to mouth, each voice joining like a droplet until the canoe itself seems to sing. The language isn't yours. The emotion is. Here's your quirky tidbit. Some Polynesian traditions suggest stars were not only navigational aids, but embodied spirits, guardians of paths, relatives watching from above. To sail was to be among them. A family reunion with altitude. A warm wind nudges the boat. You smell salt and taro and something sweet, maybe banana leaves, maybe someone's dreams baking in their head. Kahele shifts beside you. Feel the waves now, he whispers. You do. They're different, no longer random or restless. There's a long, slow roll beneath the canoe, steady as breath. Overlaid on it is a quicker, jittery tap, cross-swell from a nearby island, perhaps. A third pulse dances diagonally. 3 directions, Kahele murmurs. Land is making noise. You try to follow imagining islands humming like tuning forks beneath the sea. And here's your scholarly debate moment. Historians still argue whether the wave-reading skills of Polynesian navigators were innate, taught, or simply attuned through decades of exposure. Was it knowledge instinct or magic with good PR? You don't know. You just know you feel it now. The waves are speaking, or at least murmuring politely. A flying fish breaks the surface, skimming across the black water like a skipped stone with ambition. You watch it vanish, then hear it land with a plop far behind. No one reacts. It happens often. One sailor chuckles. Wish I could do that when my wife's mad, he mutters. Someone else snorts. Laughter is quiet here, but it still travels. Above the stars grow bolder. The Milky Way is a smear of stardust trailing across the heavens like spilled sugar on velvet. Kahele begins naming them again, Hokulea na Hiku Keka o Makali. Each name rolls with gravity like you're being introduced to elders in a dim room. The canoe slides on. No engine, no beacon, just faith memory, and Kahele's occasional head tilt. You drift to sleep, briefly rocked by a wave that feels suspiciously like a wink. When you wake, your mouth tastes like dried mango. Someone has left a piece near your head. You eat it, grateful and unsure whether it came from kindness or mistake. Either way, it's delicious. The stars continue their slow parade. Kahele hums again, new song, same warmth. Almost there, he says. You look around. The sea is empty. The sky is crowded. Nothing looks different. But Kahele knows. You believe him. Because tonight the ocean isn't just water. It's a secret being whispered. And somehow, you've learned to listen. You awake with your face pressed against woven sailcloth, your cheek warm, and your hair sticky with salt. The night hasn't ended yet, it just pressed pause to let you nap. The stars are still sprawled across the sky like they forgot to go home. Kahele sits cross-legged now, his eyes flicking from constellation to constellation, like a reader turning pages. You shuffle upright beside him, trying not to disturb the hush. Look there, he says, pointing with his chin, not his hand, because in this world, gestures mean things. Specific things. A raised finger could be mistaken for direction. A twitch too early might shift the course. Everything is deliberate. You squint. It's a bright dot, low on the horizon, trailing gold light like it's late to a celestial dinner party. Pire, he murmurs. It leads us to Tahiti. And there's your mainstream historical fact. Pire is the Tahitian name for Canopus, the second brightest star in the sky, and a major navigation marker across the southern hemisphere. Polynesian voyagers knew it well. Some chants named it the canoe bailer, as if it was forever scooping night from the ocean sky. Below, the sea is changing. You can feel it in your knees. The waves no longer roll so generously. Instead, they tighten pulse in shorter beats. The canoe begins to rise and drop like it's climbing steps instead of sliding on silk. And then you hear it just once. A distant thud, soft but unmistakable. Surf. There's land out there, still invisible, still a rumor, but real. Kahele smiles like he's heard it say his name. You glance around. The crew is stirring not with excitement, but ritual. One man begins to paint red streaks across his cheeks with what looks like crushed hibiscus. Another hums a chant under his breath syllables as rhythmic as the tide. Here's your quirky tidbit. In some island cultures, the approach to land was accompanied by specific rituals to appease the spirits of both the ocean and the island. Think of it as spiritual customs, and immigration rolled into one. You watch a woman carefully lay down 3 shells in a triangle near the prow. She doesn't speak. She doesn't have to. Kahele adjusts the sail, his motions fluid and slow like he's dancing with the canoe. Feel the wind change, he says. And you do. It carries a new scent now, less salt, more green. Something floral, maybe. Maybe rot, but rot with character. The kind that means vegetation. Soil. Fruit gone too far, but still worth dreaming of. The wind no longer pushes. It swirls. The canoe shudders like it knows. A gull cries overhead, and Kahele gives a satisfied nod. Birds come when we're close, he says. They don't sleep on water. Historians still argue whether ancient Polynesian navigators could consistently interpret bird behavior to locate islands, or if birds simply flew by when it was convenient. But tonight this gull seems to know the itinerary. A boy leans over the side of the canoe and points. Driftwood, he says. Floating lazily nearby is a chunk of palm trunk, its fronds still clinging like tangled sea hair. Kahele touches your arm. Watch now. And so you do. Off the starboard side, something looms darker than the night, taller than any wave. Slowly, it sharpens. A silhouette, then shapes. Coconut trees swaying like lazy dancers. A beach stretched like a pale ribbon across the horizon. Land, someone whispers. It sounds like a lullaby. You don't cheer. No one does. This isn't discovery. This is reunion, home, or something like it. As the canoe glides closer, the surf grows louder. It's no longer a whisper, it's a chant rising in volume and complexity. Every crest is a syllable, every crash punctuation. And you remember Kahele's words, the sea talks. It's practically yelling now. You brace yourself as the hull kisses the reef. The canoe lurches, then slows, and men leap into the shallows with practiced ease. You step after them, the warm water slapping your thighs, your toes sinking into soft sand. A crab scuttles past. You salute it. On the shore, torches flicker to life. Figures emerge from palm shadows. Voices rise not in alarm but in greeting. A welcome song starts. The melody is older than the sand. Kahele clasps your shoulder. Now you know. You nod. And you do. You don't know all the names or meanings, but you know how the stars stitched the sky, how waves read like books, and how a canoe can hold more memory than a library. The journey wasn't just across the sea. It was back through time. You step onto the beach. The air is thick with flowers' sweat, and something like gratitude. And above you the stars wheel onward, unchanged, unbothered, but maybe a little proud. The next morning you wake up beneath a thatched roof, sunlight slanting through palm frond gaps, like it's trying not to disturb you too much. The air smells like roasted yam, and something vaguely medicinal, probably a mix of seaweed and crushed leaves, someone swears can fix everything. Outside the village hums softly. Not in the modern sense, no engines, no Wi-Fi, no microwaves pinging, but in the rhythmic beat of chores being done with quiet efficiency. Mortars thump. Cloths flap. A child laughs as a pig dashes by tail corkscrewed and ambitions high. You stretch wander outside and Kahele greets you with a grin and a ripe mango. Breakfast, he says. Also sticky hands for the next 6 hours. You bite in. He's not wrong. Around you, life isn't just resuming, it's asserting itself. People braid rope from hibiscus fiber. A man carves a new paddle, testing the weight like he's choosing a dance partner. A woman calls instructions as she tends a fire pit, turning taro like sacred relics. You ask about the next voyage. Kahele chuckles. Let the canoe rest. She dreams while we do. And there's your mainstream historical fact: Polynesian voyaging was cyclical, not constant. These weren't reckless drifters or full-time nomads. They moved with a purpose, waited for the right signs, and let both seasons and stars dictate their rhythms. Over by the water's edge, 2 boys are drawing something in the sand. You wander closer. It's a map, sort of. Wavy lines, dots, concentric ripples, and a row of triangles. Is this where you're from? One asks, pointing to a random squiggle. You nod. Why not? Here's your quirky tidbit. Some island cultures used sand maps or storyboards to teach young navigators. Not exact replicas of coastlines, but memory tools, a cartographic karaoke, where the melody was current, reef, and tide. Kahele joins you, watching the boys sketch. We remember with our fingers, he says. You glance at the sea. It's still out there, endless humming. But from here it feels less like a barrier and more like an invitation. A long hallway, not a locked door. Will you sail again, you ask? Kahele shrugs. When the sea asks. There's something poetic in that. Something maddeningly vague, too. But you've learned that Polynesian time isn't about minutes. It's about moments and meanings. The village elder calls from a shaded veranda. He's preparing for the afternoon tale circle. Everyone's invited. Everyone always is. You settle beside Kahele under a breadfruit tree. The elder begins to speak, and the story rolls out like a canoe launch, slow, powerful, inevitable. It's not just entertainment. It's data, woven memory. He tells of a voyage where stars blinked out mid-journey. Some say a storm. Others say displeased gods. He tells of a captain who steered by the sound of spouting whales. He tells of a map made of stingray bones now lost to the sea. Historians still argue whether these oral histories are accurate navigational records or poetic exaggerations. But accuracy isn't the point. It's the transmission, the continuity, the echo of wisdom disguised as bedtime tales. A parrot squawks overhead. No one flinches. The elder pauses to sip coconut water, wipes his chin, then resumes like he never stopped. You notice Kahele mouthing along word for word. Later you ask how he remembers it all. I listened, he says, like you did last night. And there it is. No scrolls, no footnotes, just attentive memory passed through generations like heirlooms that breathe. Evening settles in like an old friend. The stars blink to life again, less dramatic now that you know them, but still radiant. Someone sets up a pot of fish stew. Someone else breaks into a lullaby. No one hurries. There's no rush. Time is a tide, and right now it's low and lovely. Kahele looks at you. You've got questions still. You nod. Always. Good, he says. Means you're ready to learn. Above you, canopus glows. Below, the sand holds stories in its grains. You're not just a visitor now. You're an echo of the next navigator. Or at least a very curious mango-sticky one. That night you lie on your back toes, just touching the edge of a woven mat, watching stars dangle like secrets waiting to be told. The moon isn't out tonight, so the sky is unfiltered velvet, and every constellation seems to wink just for you. Kahele points again this time, Not at the usual suspects like Orion or the Southern Cross, but to a barely visible arc of light you hadn't noticed before. Micronesian ghost path, he murmurs. Or just cloud smear. Historians still argue. You chuckle quietly because of course they do. That seems to be their full-time hobby. But Kahele's not joking. To him, that shimmering line means something. It's part of a navigational system older than paper charts, older than nations, older maybe than doubt itself. In your ear, the surf murmurs like a lullaby with too many verses, and it starts to dawn on you this isn't folklore dressing itself up as science. This is science that's comfortable being poetic. There's no tension between metaphor and fact here. It's all just observation with rhythm. You reach out and feel the mat. It's textured with rough patterns woven logic. You imagine how many stories have been told on this very spot. How many navigators fell asleep here dreaming of islands before they saw them. The elder joins you, briefly dropping beside you with a groan only knees can make. Your eyes are learning, he says. Your ears will catch up. He speaks now not of maps, but of balance, of knowing when to wait and when to go. A good navigator doesn't chase the sea. He listens until the sea invites. You blink slowly. The stars swim a little. Or maybe your eyelids are doing that thing they do when sleep flirts from the edge. The elder continues. Did you know our ancestors could hear the sea change in tone when passing near a reef? There's your quirky tidbit. Some oral accounts insist seasoned voyagers could detect land nearby by how the ocean sounded against the canoe hull. A shift in pitch. A murmur too subtle for beginners. Is it true? No instruments prove it, but many believe it. And belief has always traveled faster than measurement. A breeze carries salt and memory. You roll onto your side watching a trail of phosphorescent insects bounce gently between trees. Even the bugs seem to know the path. Someone hums a song from earlier, a lullaby maybe, or a chant. Out here the line blurs. Melody is navigation. Harmony is safety. And then the elder drops a word you hadn't expected to hear, mahina. It means moon in Hawaiian. But in older, deeper contexts, it was also a marker of time, of readiness of travel. Some voyages only begin with mahina, he says, and pats your shoulder like he's closing a book. Sleep tugs at you. Now not the panicked collapse of exhaustion, but the slow melting that comes when you feel safe enough to let go. You hear Kahele's voice from somewhere. If you dream of water, listen closely. It might be trying to tell you something. You smile. You hope it's just the tide asking you to clean up after dinner, but even if it's more cryptic, you're okay with that. Above, stars hum. Beside you, the mat creaks with quiet stories. Inside you, curiosity simmers, drowsy but never fully asleep. Morning doesn't so much arrive as seep in slowly, like a warm dye soaking into cloth. You feel the shift in light before you open your eyes, gold seeping through eyelids, the kind of hue you'd expect in a cozy bakery or a really optimistic oil painting. When you do open your eyes, it's to the sound of gentle sweeping. Not ocean, not birds, just sweeping. Someone's brushing the sand from the communal deck using a palm frond broom, and it's oddly comforting. You're not sure why the deck needs sweeping sand is its natural state, but you've already learned that not all habits are logical. Some are simply ceremonial, and this one is about preparing the space for learning. Today, you're told you'll try reading waves, not just watching them, not feeling them, reading them like a book, or more like a diary the ocean's been writing overnight. Your instructor for the day is Kahele, an older woman with sharp eyes and a tattoo of a wave that wraps around her arm and disappears beneath her sleeve like it's shy. She doesn't speak much at first, just leads you to the water's edge and gestures. Watch. You do. The sea ripples gently today, lazy and calm, nothing dramatic. But then Kahele says, "Now close your eyes." You hesitate, then comply. With your vision removed, the world becomes a different map. The breeze nudges your face from the left. The water laps against your toes, one beat. Pause, two short beats. You listen. You feel. And slowly you start to notice rhythm. Not perfection, not symmetry, but intention. There are swells under the swells, she says softly, like undercurrents in a story. And now you get it. Maybe. Sort of. Mainstream history agrees that traditional Polynesian navigators used a technique called wave piloting, essentially reading oceanic swell patterns and interference zones to determine direction and the presence of nearby land masses. It's been studied, documented, a confirmed real thing. But also, it feels like wizardry. Kahele hands you a wooden paddle. Stand knee-deep, hold it upright. You do. The paddle hums just slightly when waves hit it. Each swell has a different voice. The paddle becomes a translator, and suddenly the sea is whispering in Morse code. You don't speak it fluently yet, but you get a syllable or two. It's not about finding the island, Kahele says. It's about not getting lost. That one sticks with you, like a proverb, or a really well-timed motivational poster. She guides you to a small canoe lashed loosely to a post. "Come," she says. "Let's drift." You climb in, and the canoe rocks gently like it's shrugging. No paddling, no destination, just you, Kahele, and the pulse of water under hull. Now she says, feel for cross swells. You furrow your brow, but then your body does it for you, registers a subtle double tap on the right side of the hull, then a broader roll from beneath. Kahele nods. That's interference. 2 wave trains crossing. She sketches a map in the air tracing invisible curves. This one came from the west 2 days ago. A storm near Tonga. This one's older, southerly, slow-moving. Somewhere they intersect. Maybe near land, maybe not. But the crossing tells a story. You sit in silence, letting your body become an antenna. The canoe becomes a classroom. The sea becomes a professor who only speaks in metaphor. Historians still argue, she says with a smirk, whether this was ever fully teachable. Some say it had to be inherited, born into the bones. But she shakes her head. That's just gatekeeping. Anyone can learn to listen, even you. You beam. Or maybe you wince. It's hard to tell with that much salt in your eye. Another fact you pick up: traditional Polynesian sailors also trained by memorizing swell patterns on hand-carved stick charts made from palm ribs and shells, each intersection representing a different wave convergence. These weren't maps of space. They were maps of movement. Kahele doesn't bring out a stick chart today, but she does hand you a piece of driftwood and asks you to draw what you felt. You hesitate, then carve 2 lazy arcs intersecting near the top. She nods. Close enough? Now go nap. That's how we seal learning. And just like that, your lesson's over. You head back up the beach, paddle in hand, head full of wave lore and metaphor, and a renewed respect for how subtle navigation can be. You pass a child trying to build a canoe out of coconuts. He offers you one as a paddle. You accept. Never insult a young engineer. Back in your hut, you lie down and close your eyes again, not to escape, but to review, not to sleep yet, but to file things away. The hum of swells beneath a wooden hull, the thump of water against a paddle, the crossing patterns like whispered gossip in the sea, and the knowledge that even when the stars are gone and the wind is quiet and all you've got is a sloshing sound beneath your canoe, you're never really lost if you're listening. You wake mid-afternoon to the distant, slightly off-key twang of a nose flute being played by an earnest apprentice, its haunting tones echoing between palm trunks and reef rocks, like a memory you haven't quite made yet. The air is soft, warmer than before, but the ocean breeze keeps it from settling too heavily on your skin. Someone has tucked a plumeria flower behind your ear while you slept. And when you sit up, it tumbles to your lap like a blessing. You find Kahele sitting by the edge of the lagoon, his feet submerged in water so clear you can see a small school of fish darting between his toes. In his lap is something delicate and mysterious, a stick chart, its palm ribs bent into arcs with tiny cowrie shells tied at intersections like stars in a sky only a navigator can read. You sit beside him, and he hands the chart over with a reverent quiet. It's lighter than it looks, barely more than a web of lines and shells. But holding it feels like holding someone's heartbeat, fragile but insistent. You ask him how he can possibly read this. Kahele tilts the chart slightly. These arcs, he says, show swell patterns. See how this one curves differently. That's a reflected wave bouncing off an island you'll never see unless you know where to look. He traces it with a fingertip, soft and deliberate. This one is the prevailing swell. Constant, dependable, like the hum of a sleepy voice at night. Mainstream history fact incoming. These stick charts called Rebelib or Meadow, depending on region, were crafted by the Marshallese people and used across the Pacific, practical memory tools that conveyed wave refraction, swell interaction, and island chains all in one portable web. Each one was personal. No two were the same. Often they were destroyed after a voyage, ensuring that knowledge remained sacred and not just copied. Historians still argue Kahele muses whether they were ever used on voyages themselves or just in teaching. But he points to a shell. This one saved my cousin from wrecking near Tuvalu. So maybe the argument isn't the point. You shift the chart in your hands. The arcs catch the afternoon light, throwing shadows across your lap like sea serpents swimming under moonlight. You can almost feel the swell patterns under your fingertips like braille for the ocean. "Here's a funny bit," he says, grinning. "Some old navigators. They used to chew a bitter root before night sailing. Said it made your lips more sensitive. Better for detecting temperature shifts in wind. And maybe..." He lifts his hand dramatically, maybe for kissing too. You chuckle? He chuckles. The ocean chuckles along the reef line. The stick chart has no compass, no words, no scale. But you're starting to realize it doesn't need any of those things. It's not about knowing where you are. It's about knowing how you're moving. Through space, through water, through life. A child runs by holding a tangle of fabric, Kahele's discarded wrap skirt apparently, and flaps it like a sail, shrieking joyfully. Another apprentice joins the flute player, their duet only occasionally harmonious. Someone hands you a cup of something cool and sweet, maybe made from taro or coconut. You don't ask. You sip. Kahele leans close. "Want to try navigating?" You look at him sideways. "We're not even on a boat." He taps your chest. "You are the boat. Your breath is your wind." So you close your eyes. You imagine the chart again, feel the gentle push of swells against an outrigger hull, the way the stars rotate above you like a slow carousel, and the hum of wave interference nudging you ever so slightly to the left. You aren't on water. Not physically. But mentally you are gliding across centuries of memory, reading ripples in stories passed from lip to lip. The wind rustles the palms overhead. The chart in your lap shifts ever so slightly, guided by the breeze. You swear just for a second it aligns itself perfectly with the path you imagined. Later that night, the sky stretches above you like a dark canvas brushed with crushed pearl and powdered charcoal, its stars shimmering with the sharp clarity that only open ocean and ancient wisdom can produce. You're lying on a sleeping mat beneath a thatched awning, the smell of roasted breadfruit and cooling embers drifting lazily through the air like lullabies. Kahele sits nearby, quietly polishing a smooth shell with a scrap of cloth. Every now and then he mutters something to himself, not quite words, more like syllables shaped by breath and the memory of chants. You get the sense he's talking to the stars, or to the sea, or maybe both. With him, the line blurs. You ask him if he remembers his first voyage. He pauses, shell in hand. It was terrifying, he admits with a sheepish grin. First night out, the sea was calm, but my head stormy. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, what if I forget the swells? What if I mistake a bird's flight and end up circling until we drift into nothing? You ask what changed. I listened, he says simply. Not with my ears, with my skin, my feet, my ribs. He taps his sternum. This is your compass if you let it be. You glance down at your own chest, where the steady rise and fall of breath feels suddenly profound. And then comes the tale of Tilapa, a legend whispered across Polynesia. Not exactly fact, not exactly fiction. A flash of light beneath the sea, visible only to trained navigators, always pointing toward land. Historians still argue, Kahele says, whether Tilapa was real. Maybe it was bioluminescent plankton, maybe electrical currents, or maybe... He squints toward the horizon, the island calling to us. You lie back again, eyes drawn upward. Mainstream history would have you believe that Polynesian navigation was nothing but luck island hopping via trial and error. But modern research now shows what oral traditions always knew. These were master mariners, men and women with minds like telescopes and skin like tide gauges, able to sail thousands of miles without ever needing ink on paper. Kahele points to the sky. That bright one near the zenith, that's Altair. In our traditions, she's the scout. When she climbs high, the wind follows her. The sky is alive with names if you listen. Canopus, the navigator's torch. Antares, blood star of the southern horizon. Orion, the celestial paddler. You ask how he remembers all of them. Kahele shrugs. My grandmother sang them into my spine before I could speak. You forget songs faster than stories. But stories, they stick. He tells you how their voyages were embedded into chants with the names of birds, fish stars, and wind patterns forming a rhythm of wayfinding. Not quite maps, but something deeper. Maps of experience, of patterns, of things learned when the sails go slack and you drift long enough to recognize the scent of coral 3 days before landfall. You ask if there are still real voyages now. Oh yes, Kahele says. Some crews still sail the old ways. No GPS, no engines, just star compass and memory. He pauses. And when they reach land, they don't say, "We arrived." They say, "The island rose to meet us." You grin. That's poetic. It's also accurate, he replies. Land rises on the horizon, but it also rises in your chest. Like a promise being kept. Nearby, a log cracks in the fire pit, sending a small spark upward. It vanishes against the night, swallowed by starlight. A quiet settles between you again. The kind of quiet that's heavy but not sad. Like the end of a song that knows not to ask for applause. Then, just before sleep curls its fingers around your limbs, Kahele says, "One last thing." You grunt softly. The ocean is not empty. It's crowded with knowledge. But it only speaks if you're boring enough to listen. You laugh gently. Well, good thing I'm exceptionally boring. Kahele nods, serious. Then you'll do just fine. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm of your breath align with the tide's long exhale, stars pinwheeling above you in slow orbit, each one a breadcrumb home. The final morning arrives like a whisper across the waves, soft gold-streaked and wrapped in mist. The sky has the washed-out glow of a dream, nearly forgotten. You stretch your limbs on the deck and blink at the brightness, the soreness in your shoulders a quiet reminder of how far you've come, if not in miles then in mind. The canoe rocks gently beneath you, more cradle than craft, the sea calm for once. Kahele has already been up for hours, of course. You find him balancing on the outrigger, eyes closed, palms open to the breeze as though he's reading a book only he can see. He calls you over, and with no fanfare points to the horizon. There it is. Just a smear at first, like a smudge on the sky's clean edge. But it grows, sharpens, turns green, then brown, then lush. The island, a new dot on the map of your mind, or rather an old one remembered. Kahele grins. She rose. And just like that you understand. No horn blasts, no confetti, just the certainty of land found not with compass and calculation, but with rhythm and patience, with noticing things others forget, with learning to be in the most sacred and satisfying sense. Boring. You lean against the gunwale as the island grows taller. Villagers are already wading into the surf, waving. A pig squeals in welcome. Children chase dogs along the palm-fringed beach. Kahele waves back his voice, suddenly louder than you thought possible, as he calls out greetings you can't quite translate but feel down to your bones. As the hull scrapes sand, the crew disembarks one by one. You hesitate, wanting to savor the pause, this last in-between, a moment before you step onto Earth and everything becomes history again. Kahele slaps your shoulder. Time to write it down, he says. Not with ink, with how you live. He walks ahead barefoot in the surf, his footprints erased behind him, even as yours begin. Now as you stand at the edge of ocean and memory, you begin to realize that this whole voyage wasn't really about sailing at all. It was about listening, about softening your gaze, letting the ripple lead, letting the wind decide. You look back just once. The canoe floats empty now, bobbing slightly as if waiting for its next whisperer. A seabird flaps by, the sun climbs higher. And in this quiet, gentle crescendo, you take your first step onto land with the strange but peaceful knowledge that your sleep tonight will come on the back of a voyage long made and longer remembered. And now, as the island fades behind your eyelids, let your breathing slow like a calm tide, in and out. You're still drifting, still gently rocking in the warm cradle of the ocean. Let your body feel light. Let the sand beneath your feet become the softness of your sheets, the weight of your limbs, like sails gone slack after the voyage is done. Remember the quiet stars above you, the hush of the sea, the warmth of Kahele's laughter, and the slow wisdom of waves repeating their lullaby for thousands of years. There is no rush, no storm, just gentle rhythm, just breath, just the memory of ripples guiding you without fuss, without worry, without fear. And as your thoughts settle like silt in still water, let the last image be that of the island on the horizon, always rising, always waiting, always there. Let yourself go. Let the tide carry you. Let sleep find you like a feather drifting down to the sea. You've made it. The voyage is done. Rest now.